Hey everyone, it's Jenna Harte here, and today I thought I would share with you the books that I am planning to read for July 2020. We are in the middle of a pandemic, which means, at least for me, that I am not getting out a lot and I am doing a lot of binge watching of TV and a lot more reading. I am writing as well. Now, in terms of binge watching TV, I'm also binge watching a lot of YouTube, and I've been watching a lot of YouTubers or booktubers on YouTube, and I thought it might be fun to share some of the things that I plan to read in the month of July since I have so much more time now to read. Now, to be clear, I don't plan on becoming a booktuber. I think actually I'm probably too old to be a booktuber because everybody I'm watching is about 30 years younger than me, but I really enjoy watching them. I love seeing that young people are excited about reading. I'm learning about all sorts of new authors and books that they are reading and exciting about. It's particularly interesting when I'm watching a variety of them and they're sharing the same book that they're really excited about. Definitely a book that's added to my list. So I thought I would take a page from their book and do a similar video on what I plan to read in the month of July. So let's go ahead and get started. The first book I plan to read is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is not a new book. It has been out for a while. It is a book that is popular among the booktubers that I have been watching. This book is actually my daughter's book. She got it. She loved it. She lent it to me, and when I didn't read it fast enough, she took it back, read it again, and then brought it back to me. So I do plan to read it. This book is a hate to love book that takes place in an office setting. So the tropes are office setting with hate to love. And apparently the banter is really good. I love good banter. Sometimes in the hate to love tropes, it can not work out well. Some people don't execute that very well, and all that sort of hate banter is like too much, too negative, too snarky, too mean, and I walk away wondering why either of them like the other person. But done well, it can be lots of fun, and I'm hearing that it is done well in here, so I'm really excited to start this book. I'm going to actually start it today. So I tend to be fairly picky about what I read, and I generally stick to contemporary romance. So it might be a paranormal or something like that, or just a regular straightforward contemporary romance, but I don't read a lot of historical romance. And on the booktubers I was watching, a lot of them did recommend some historical romance. My sister really enjoys historical romance, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So I picked up Tessa Dare's The Governess's Game, and I picked it up because this is one that the booktubers really enjoyed. It has the trope of basically the nanny and the daddy, although I don't think he's the dad. I think maybe he's a guardian, and of course it's a historical romance, so I guess he's kind of a rake, and she's feisty. So all that is supposed to be in this book. Those are all kind of fun things to read about romance, and so I'm excited to read it. I don't know a lot about it. Like I said, I don't read a lot of historical romance. I mean, I like Jane Austen, but her books were contemporary when she wrote them, so I don't know if that counts as historical romance or not. I like Jane Eyre too, which takes place in history, but at the time it was written would have been considered contemporary. So I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to read this book that it was written in the modern day about historical times, and excited to see if it's as good as all the booktubers said it was. Okay, so the next book I'm going to read is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And this is another one that the booktubers really liked. Most of them have this on some of their best favorite lists, so I'm really excited to read this one. It's essentially about the first son of a female president and a prince who really actually don't like each other. So it has that hate to love trope again, and they actually get involved in some sort of fight or something in public. It looks bad for both countries, and so they're told, look, you need to pretend like you're friends and fix this for us. So it also has the trope of fake friends, which they do, except for over the course of that, it turns into something more. I'm really excited to read this because, again, people have really been raving about this book and enjoying it, and I haven't actually read that much in romance. I've read some, but I certainly haven't read one that has gotten as much buzz as this, so I'm really excited to read this. I do like royal romances as well, I'll be interested to see if I have the same excitement about this book as they did. So the next book I'm going to read is Intercepted by Alexa Martin. I actually chose it because she, the author, is married to a football player, and this book is about a football player and a love interest. And I thought, how interesting would it be to read a romance where you have real life insights into that world by someone who lives in it. There's plenty of sports romances out there, but I'm not sure those authors actually live in that world to be depicting it in a way that somebody who does live in that world can. So I'm really excited to read this one. It is about a woman who has been dating a football player for a long time, finds out he's cheating and dumps him. But then later meets another football player and re-enters that world. But the women, the wives and girlfriends that were there before, are not really very excited to have her back and are sort of scheming against her. So I'll be curious to see how this one goes. But mostly I'm interested to see if there's some interesting insights into that world that this author is able to give that maybe aren't seen in other sports romances. Now, this book I picked just because it sounded really interested, and that is Crazy Cupid Love by Amanda Hager. And basically, this is about a descendant of Eros who calls herself the world's worst Cupid and has avoiding her work in Cupid romance making, but is forced to have to go back and work at it. And to me, it just sounded really intriguing. First of all, you would think a descendant of Eros would have the love and romance down pat. So it's sort of funny that someone that has that doesn't have it down pat. I'll be curious to see how this goes because I really haven't heard anything about it. I don't know anything about it, but it just looked cute, sounded fun, and thought I would try it out. If you have read this, I would love to hear in the comments below your thoughts about it. Otherwise, you'll have to wait and see, and maybe I will tell you whether I think it's a worthwhile read. And finally, for the next couple of months, I thought I would add a classic bit of literature to my reading list. A couple years ago, I did this. I decided once a month I was going to read classic literature, and at that time I read Jane Eyre at that point. I read other Jane Austen that I hadn't read before. I read Animal Farm and Uncle Tom's Cabin. So I tried to read a lot of things that I wouldn't normally read because I prefer books that are going to end well, and not all those books really ended well. But I thought again to kind of expand my reading repertoire that I would include some classic literature, but my goal was to read romantic classic literature. And that's, since I've already read all Jane Austen and I've read Jane Eyre, all the other classic romance literature that I'm finding doesn't really necessarily end well. Like Wuthering Heights is listed as a classic romance, but my understanding is it's really kind of tragic and sad. I have added it to the list, although I'm still not quite sure if I really want to read it, which I know sounds bad because it's like one of the big pieces of literature, but I'm just like, why would I want to read about a doomed couple? I don't know, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So the book that I chose this month as sort of my classic literature that has romance in it is D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover. And the reason I chose this was because when it was written, it was banned for being too racy. So I'm really, really curious to see what too racy was back when this came out. This is about Lady Chatterley, whose husband is back from the war. He's paralyzed and is unable to do his husbandly duties, and so she takes a lover, and that's really all I know about it at this point. I'm really curious about the story, why it was banned back then. If it really is racy compared to today's standards, I don't know. So I'll have to let you know about that as well. So that's it. Those are the books that I plan to be reading for July. I'd be really curious to hear if you have a to be read stack that you are going to be working through in July, and or maybe if you've read some of these books or plan to read any of these books, you can let me know about that below. You know, one of the things about doing videos like this is it seems to be very one-sided. I'm kind of talking at you, you're listening, but we're not really being able to have a conversation. For example, maybe you've read one of these books and you're sitting on the other side of this camera going, no, 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 don't read that book. Or maybe, yes, 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 you're going to love that book. I don't know, because we can't have a conversation. And it's one of the things that I miss about this pandemic is the ability to talk to people about books. Yes, we can Zoom and all that kind of stuff, but I miss going out in the world and, really having conversations about books and sharing the books that I like, learning what other people are reading. So one of the things I've decided to do is I wanted to create an online community, which still isn't the same thing as being out and together, but it's going to be the next best thing, at least in the short run. An online community where people can come and talk about books. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but there's Goodreads, or we can do that on Facebook, and which is true. But I'm reading a lot of romance fiction right now because all the other types of fiction, just in the middle of a pandemic, just don't seem very exciting to me. I'd rather read something that I know is going to end well and is going to be uplifting and happy and positive. So that's what I've been reading, and that's really kind of like what I want to talk to people about. I also know that romance is one of those things that is kind of low man on the literary totem pole, that, a lot of people who read it don't want to admit that they read it. Or even write it. And I guess I'm at the age where I just don't even care anymore. I will admit it. And I, think that perhaps maybe there's other people like me who really enjoy this type of literature or fiction or genre fiction, whatever you want to call it. And I just think it would be fun if we could all have a single place where we could go and connect to each other to talk about the books we're reading, our favorite books, maybe historically, the books that we're looking for coming out, our favorite authors, all that kind of stuff. If you love romance, this will be the place to be. Now, it's currently in the process of being built. I don't have it up for you yet, but I do hope to have it out soon. So I hope that you will follow me so that you can know when it comes out. You can visit jennaharte.com, where all my social media links are there, so you can follow me, and you will be able to be up to date when it is open and ready for you to come and talk about your favorite romance fiction. So that's it. Until next time, this is Jenna Harte wishing you peace, love, and happily ever after.